How can I respond to the claim that brain mapping proves that transgender people's brains match their perceived gender? So therefore, supposedly, it provides evidence that they are transgender.
Right, right. Well, I'm always a little skeptical when people cite examples or studies where people are connecting or making a correlation between certain brain states and certain ways of thinking or behaviors or perceptions or beliefs. And part of the reason why I'm skeptical about that is because we might be able to show correlation, but that doesn't necessarily mean causation. In fact, it could be the case that what's going on is actually working in the opposite direction. In other words, you could have beliefs, thoughts, and patterns of thinking that ultimately affect brain states or brain chemistry and brain perhaps even morphology. So, for example, if I'm recalling correctly, I think there were some studies done on people who were blind who used their fingers to read Braille more often, and as a result of this kind of behavior and processing, eventually you could see changes in the way their brains were. Mm-hmm. In fact, even myself, when I was a physical therapist many years ago, I would work with stroke patients. And when a stroke patient had a stroke, it was because a certain portion of the brain died, and it was that portion of the brain that was responsible for controlling a certain muscular behavior. Well, through retraining, we were able to have them have other parts of their brain control the same parts of their body that were once controlled by these original parts. And so, in other words, you can have correlation existing between brain and behavior and thoughts, but it doesn't necessarily mean it goes in one direction, not the other.
So the assumption here seems to be that there's physical evidence in the brain mapping that this is an actual physical condition, transgender, but you're saying that that's not necessarily the case because it could be that the brain states are the way they are because the mental states have affected them.
Exactly.
And there's lots of other kinds of examples of where the mental states affect the brain states.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could just be that just based upon the way they're thinking and behaving and their psychological states, this is affecting their brain. And so they're looking and seeing the brain in a particular state and saying, oh, see, look, it's different in the case of people who are transgender. But again, there could be a lot of things that contribute to brain changes, not just, in other words, it doesn't just necessarily go the other way.
Well, so let's say it is in the mind, and the mind is affecting the brain. Well, isn't that still evidence that this is a real condition?
Well, there's no doubt that it's a real condition. I don't doubt that people who are transgender truly believe for example, if they have a physically male body, and they believe themselves to be female, there's no question that they are transgender in the sense that there is a disconnect between their perceived gender identity and their biological sex. But that there is some sort of a biological brain cause for that doesn't seem to follow as a result of the fact that there is a reality of people who are transgender.
And I guess people would assume if there are brain states that are mapped that are causing this, that's probably not changeable. But as you're pointing out, that it could just as well be the mental states affecting the brain. And we know very well we can change our mind. I mean, we can affect the patterns of our thinking and our perceptions because we do it all the time.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, the whole question, of course, presumes a sort of a materialistic understanding of humanity and that human beings are merely biological, physical objects with no immaterial soul. And so I know that this question doesn't touch on that, but it presupposes that's the case, that if we have a brain chemistry or if we have brain physiology going on, that's the only thing contributing to the way we think and behave and perceive ourselves, which, of course, I would disagree with. I think there's a lot more going on.